Matthew here from MWG.com, and it's time for another Sit and Talk. This is a show where you ask me anything about anything to do with wargaming, business, or even politics and religion. So if you're easily offended by those subjects, meaning politics and religion, then please do not watch this show, as I just answer questions and express my opinions on things, and sometimes people don't agree with those opinions, and that's perfectly fine. If you're able to disagree with my opinions without getting angry or offended, then watch on, leave comments, we'll have a lot of fun. If you want your comment or question answered, then make sure you leave a comment in the comment section below, unless you're watching this on YouTube, in which case you need to click the link in the video description and leave a comment there. It's not that I don't like YouTube commenters, it's just that it's easier to print off using a program that I created on my website when it's using our comment system. Last week we talked about a few things, but I got a record number of comments, 19 pages when printed out of comments. Normally I get between 12 and maybe 15. We talked about a couple of big subjects such as Warhammer Fantasy and also sexuality in miniatures, so it's probably because of that. And so I'm just going to go ahead and start answering the questions. Of course, once you're at our comment section on our website, make sure you thumbs up any comments that you would like to be answered. Don't bother thumbing down the ones that you don't like, because we don't want to do that. We want to just make sure everybody thumbs up what they want. And then I take the top 10 and then random questions after that. So here we go. TJ Duty. If you were Matthew Warren Glanfield, sorry spelling, your initials would be MWG. Seeing as you aren't, it's irrelevant. It was completely coincidental that Mini Wargaming had similar initials to me. In fact, when you look at the Mini Wargaming logo, the MWG, you could just read it in a different direction and it would be WMG. But that was purely coincidental. Mission 2B of the World Engine was great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Keep up the good work. Mission 2B of the World Engine. Has that even gone up yet? I thought that was going up today. I think you mean Mission 1B, because 2A and 2B are going up today, which is today's Thursday. I'm recording this on Thursday. It'll go out tomorrow on Friday. Arine, hey Matt, I really enjoyed the new 40K. I really enjoy the new 40K campaign, especially because you, Dave, and Steve participate in it. I think it adds a lot of quality to the battle report when you guys act together in front of the camera. I know it's 3 times the cost for Mini Wargaming, but please keep on doing it that way. It's just super entertaining to watch Steve and Dave duel each other while you are trying to explain the rules to them. I think you created the narrative rules and participated as kind of a games master behind the camera. And Dave and Steve playing is the best format for narrative campaigns. Good job. It's definitely it has a good chemistry to it. It's not something we can do every time, not just because of cost, but because of production time. Dave needs to be making videos, Steve needs to be making videos and being in other videos and editing videos. And so it's just a matter of being able to get all this content that we want to get done. And yeah, it's a little more expensive too, but the narrative campaigns really help grow our vault, so that's perfectly fine. And the nice thing about being the games master is that whenever I'd play in the campaigns and I played one of the sides and won, I'd always get flack for balancing the mission in my favor. And even though I never did, even though I just created the missions as if it didn't matter who would play it, I would create it the same way. But now people can't say that because I'm not playing. Dougnifico. Will any of your other employees be getting modeled in the Mini Wargaming chapter like Dave and yourself? I could see Steve as the company captain and Chris as a high-ranking apothecary. Over time, you could add new high-ranking employees to the roster and horribly kill off any characters that get fired. Currently, we don't have any plans, but we do have plans. Like we've always thought about naming certain characters after them, or even like past club members as well. Like I always thought, if you remember Fireman Tim, for those of you that have been around for that long, we're thinking of having like a guy with a big, massive flamethrower named after him. So it'd be Tim the Pyromancer, because he's a fireman. And it's fire. I think you get it. Especially because we're based off the Salamanders chapter. And so really like fire too. Just fun things like that. So we might do that in the future. Who knows? Doug-Eye, Gork or Mork? Huh, I think, I can't remember, which one is the cunning but deadly, and which one's deadly but cunning? Help me out here, Ash.
It doesn't matter.
It matters. Which one?
No, it actually...
Do you know? Do you remember off the top of your head?
Gorkers are cunningly brutal, and Morkers are brutally cunning.
That's right. So the Gorkers are the big mechs,
yep.
And the Morkers are the knobs, that kind of stuff. Or yeah, basic.
No, they're all just exactly the same.
Exactly. So am I more cunningly deadly or deadly cunning?
Cunningly brutal.
Cunningly brutal or brutally cunning? I would go with. I already forgot which one's which, but the one.
Brutally cunning.
No, I'd say cunningly brutal.
I'd say brutally cunning.
Really?
Yeah. Well,
But
that's where all these great schisms start.
But brutally cunning is like your power first and cunning second. And I think I'm more cunning first, power second.
Okay, I can see how you can interpret it that way.
Yeah, that's how I see it. Because it's like, because the big mechs are the ones that are cunningly brutal. And I see myself more as a big mech than as a war boss.
The second word was the primary thing.
No, because the Gorkanaut and the Morkanaut, you look at it, I remember reading it, and it was like the big mechs are the cunningly brutal. Like cunning but brutal. I think it's actually cunning but brutal, not cunningly brutal. Cunning but brutal, and the other ones are brutal. Oh, was it? It wasn't? Okay. Well, who knows? Who knows? But I'm the one that's more cunning than brutal, but still brutal. Because, yeah, I have the shock attack gun and the custom force field. That's all I want. That's all I want. Ramius, what are the chances that there could be a list of Mini Wargaming's armies added to the Mini Wargaming homepage? Well, the chances are not zero. It's always something that could happen. If you get enough monkeys typing out enough keyboards for enough time, I'm sure that you get all our armies listed. I don't think we'll ever do that though, because we're constantly adding to it, and so that would just be, it would be something to maintain that most people wouldn't care about. Like it would be like, oh, that's cool, but really doesn't contribute any value to the site whatsoever. So not likely, but not 0%. There's very few things in this world that are 0%, and like very few things that are 100% too. But Gloomed Ready, or Gloomed Ready. At this point, I just wanted to say thanks to you, Matt, and everyone who works or has worked at Mini Wargaming, still following Owen and Dan on YouTube. As I have said before, I've been watching Mini Wargaming's content pretty much from when you guys started. Spent hours of painting to all your guys' vlogs, live shows, battle reports, random videos, etc. And your videos have actually helped me stay sane during a really insecure and hard time in my life. I'm glad to hear that. Of course, the main thanks goes to my close friends, but they couldn't be around all the time. That's understandable. And in the hours of late evening or night, Mini Wargaming's videos actually help me to get my mind off things, to focus on the hobby I love, and also to get involved into the international wargaming scene a bit. So I wanted to say thanks for that. You guys are good. Even Naughty Chris, though I heard that he might have spanked a monkey during one of his live shows. I hope that's not true. I am also chuffed, yes, chuffed, I enjoy weird English words, that you guys actually get back into Warhammer Fantasy. Because autumn approaches, which means dusting off my ogres and getting back into fantasy. It became kind of my winter game. I don't know why. I will probably reserve time a bit and play 7th edition with a friend now. Anyway, Rambly. Love you guys. Have a good week. Vault member for life. German girl. Thank you. Very nice comments. And it even got thumbed up a bunch. It was a bunch, and it was in the top 10. So thank you to everybody else who thumbed up and agreed with that. Destroy Apathy. Awesome username. Hey, Matt. Been meaning to leave a comment for a while. That's a perfect first line for a username. That's Destroy Apathy. I mention it after Batreps sometimes, hoping it helps out other viewers, but I know you said before that this isn't always the best way to alert you to things. I've noticed that in 40k games you often give a blanket 4+ cover save for many things, particularly being obscured by ruins and equivalents. This would have been correct in 6th, but there was a pivotal change that you might have missed in 7th. Being 25% obscured always by default confers a 5+ cover save. The 4 for ruins now specifically says in ruins rather than for ruins in general. The only things you get for being obscured is barricades and defense lines. I like to be pretty up on how cover works, playing primarily Dark Eldar and Tyranids, both squishy armies, or at least with very squishy elements that rely heavily on cover. Having said all that, the game is always played between people that can agree on the cover being played however they want, but just wanted to clarify how the rules say to play it. Yeah, I've seen more than one comment on that, how it's not 4+ just for going through ruins, and I believe you're right. I remember just kind of quickly checking it, and I haven't really read in depth to make sure that that's correct. And I've even brought it up with some of my opponents, just saying, okay, we're just going to do it this way for now. If you're shooting through ruins and the ruins obscure somebody, then we give a 4+ for that. And yeah, as long as you can agree with your opponent. Basically, what you want to always do is at the beginning of the game, before any shots are fired or any models are deployed, is agree on what confers cover saves and when it confers cover saves. For example, with ruins, if you have a footprint of the ruin that extends beyond the walls of the ruin, you want to basically make sure you clarify if they're in that footprint, do they get the 4+ save, or do they have to be within the walls to get the 4+ save? We always do the footprint just because it's way easier and you don't have to worry about abstracting it. I've even had a comment saying, hey, you moved your model into the footprint and you get a cover save, but you didn't roll for difficult terrain. And area terrain is not, the area terrain doesn't exist, but that concept of area terrain does not automatically make it difficult terrain. We always say when we have our bases, I wish I had one right here that I could show you, for the ruins, is we say if it's just flat ground, it's not difficult terrain, but if you're in it, you do get a cover save. It's when you pass over a wall or a rock or something that looks like difficult terrain that's when it becomes difficult. So that's kind of how we house rule it. I might read up more on the cover rules and change that, but in the end, as long as at the beginning of the game, you both agree on it, then it's perfectly balanced because you're both getting that same save. Although I guess some people could argue that those with worse armor saves are getting the better end of that deal because they improve their save. All right, Necronomicon. Hey Matt, with the Space Hulk re-release, would you consider playing through it? Yeah, I actually ordered a couple copies of it because it has new missions. I know they're also, from the rumors, or I can't remember if they announced it or saw this in rumors, that they're going to be releasing a bunch of data slates. They're out already?
Yep.
Okay, so they're already out. Of basically missions that kind of go with each of the different Space Marine chapters, or a bunch of them at least, probably not all of them. Yeah, and it comes with new tiles, because we have Space Hulk still, that I can dust off as well, but it comes with some new tiles, the boarding torpedoes and the turbo lift, and yeah, so I ordered 2 copies. We'll get it whenever I think it comes in the next week or so, and we have plans to play through it. I don't know when, but because I think I want to get them painted up this time, just so that they look that much cooler. So it might take a month or 2 before we play through it. But the nice thing is, because we don't have our store and we're not trying to pre-sell or pre-order these, or pre-sell them, I don't have to worry about those timelines quite as much. And also the fact that it runs out, I don't care, I can still play because people are still interested to watch it. Whereas before we'd be like, oh, we're not going to play it anymore because we can't sell it. And our videos were focused on trying to get people to buy products, and so playing games that are no longer being sold is obviously counterproductive. Now that's no longer the case. Ramius, hey Matt, now that X-Wing has added a 3rd faction, Scum and Villainy, are there going to be more X-Wing battle reports, or is it going to remain at every so often coverage? Well, there's no plans to make it regular coverage. X-Wing is a tough one for me to decide on. Well, right now we don't have the resources to fully cover X-Wing, especially because we just started doing fantasy. So you gotta wait before you request another game because we have to grow a bit more and get more employees, which will take a little longer. X-Wing, the reason that it's difficult is because it is popular. In fact, according to some reports, it's the 2nd most popular war game after 40K in terms of sales. But it's kind of a catch-22. It's not quite in the league with miniature war games. Like, it is obviously a miniature war game. It is perfectly, definitely is. But it obviously lacks several components of the miniature wargaming hobby, which is the assembling and painting of your miniatures. It also is limited in what miniatures they can come out with. Sure, now they're reaching deeper, and then they're coming out with the Armada game, which looks really cool, and I definitely want to try that out sometime. But in the end, what it is people who play Star Wars and nothing else aren't going to be as invested in the hobby as much as those who play 40K Fantasy, War Machine, or other miniature war games, where it requires spending more money, more time, and painting and collecting and assembling. Because they get more invested, they tend to be a little more obsessed with it and watch more videos and be more likely to become mini wargaming vault members, all that kind of stuff. Star Wars X-Wing kind of bridges that gap between board games and miniature war games, which I think everybody knows. Like, you look at that, you're like, yeah, it's kind of the hybrid between the two. It's easy to learn, the rules are pretty straightforward, but it has a good depth tactically, and they're obviously miniatures. And you obviously play it like a miniature war game where you move it around using templates for movement instead of measuring tapes, but that's okay. And you still roll dice, custom dice, but still, you roll dice. So yeah, I don't know if it'd ever come to the point where we would really cover X-Wing a lot, because I'd be afraid that the audience that we would draw in, that play that a lot and nothing else, won't really become vault members. It's hard to know until we try it, but it's a big investment to try a game and really get it going and then say, hey, this isn't working, we're going to drop it, because then you have a lot of angry fans, and we don't want that at all. So no plans to really fully cover X-Wing. Sporadically for sure. I really enjoyed the game when it first came out, and I still like the game, but it kind of got old pretty fast, I found. So I just don't see it being the next game that we would, if we were going to add another game to our roster, I don't think the next game will be X-Wing. Off the top of my head, I don't know what the next game will be, and I know everybody will have all sorts of requests and suggestions, but it's a very careful decision that we have to make, because it takes a lot of time and effort to build up that audience of people who are interested in that game, and we put a lot of time and money into doing so. Dynamics said, "Hey Matt, thanks for answering my last question." You're welcome. I was wondering, what is your favorite of the new 40K Codex covers so far? I haven't really been paying attention to the covers. The Orc one is really cool, though. I do remember that. The Space Marines, they're all actually, I really like the art of the covers of the new ones. I just, off the top of my head, I can't like picture them all. I can picture some of the main ones that I look at all the time, like Tyranids, and that one's cool. But yeah, I haven't really, they've always popped to me as being nice looking books, but that's kind of where it ends and I move on. So sorry, I don't have a really good answer for that. Ice Cool. Hi Matt! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. I've had my very first Warhammer Fantasy game this week. Awesome. It was awesome. See, told you. Finally, after painting 108 miniatures. Yeah, that's fantasy. My ethereal hex rays matched up with a unit with magic weapons, so they were toast. And the Terrorgeist met up with a giant and died quickly too. Hee hee. But it was a blast and can't wait to play again. Yeah, fantasy, you're going to have a bit of a learning curve to play it right. It's a little more in-depth than 40K when it comes to making sure you do stuff right. 40K is a lot more forgiving. One of the reasons I actually like 40K more than fantasy is because of that. There's many other reasons too, but I just like how it kind of plays more fluidly. Whereas fantasy, it's much more like you're moving these guys around and where you're sitting is really important. Thanks for Mini Wargaming. I'm a bot member and loving it. Thank you. Trinity Blazer. Hey Matt, will Mini Wargaming ever cover Drop Zone Commander? Also, what do you think of an... Okay, that's a different question. Will we ever cover Drop Zone Commander? It's possible. I guess I kind of already answered that question saying I don't know what we're going to be expanding to next, which won't be like next week or next month. It's more like several months from now or a year from now. I have no idea when. But Drop Zone Commander definitely is a cool game, but I don't know. I don't know when, if ever, we'll cover it. The one thing I'm curious of, so this is the question I have that nobody can answer because it's a question about the future, is what will Mini Wargaming look like in 10 years or 20 years? Are we going to continue to grow like we have? In other words, we just keep putting up videos and our market size grows and that allows us to hire more employees, which allows us to cover more games or more thoroughly cover existing games, which grows our audience, which grows our revenue, which allows us to hire more employees. And you can kind of see how that it builds and builds and builds. So will it still be building in 10 years? Obviously not at the rate that it does at the beginning, because you always have a rapid growth rate at the beginning of a business life cycle, and it tends to slow down. And for us, it still hasn't really slowed down yet, but we're still technically in our early stages when it comes to the Mini Wargaming Vault. We've kind of changed our business model, and so it's almost like we're only 2 or 3 years old ever since we really started pushing the Mini Wargaming Vault. And so there's almost like two businesses that just overlapped heavily. So we're still in that early growth stage, which means we're growing rapidly compared to what you'd see. Like a business would love to have a 10 to 20% growth rate year after year, and we're seeing way more than that. Or will it plateau in the next year? And so we'll kind of get more stuck at a certain revenue level, which will keep us at a certain number of employees and therefore only able to cover a certain number of games. So we'll just kind of stick to the popular ones, and maybe occasionally have showcases of smaller ones, but never really fully covering them. I don't know. I would love it to be that we eventually grow to this huge studio with tons of studios and tons of employees, and we're covering all sorts of games. And that way, and of course, still the popular ones a lot. Like the more popular a game, then obviously the more we cover it. Like 40K would get more coverage than some new game that comes out that has a small market, but we would still be able to cover those games. And so it would be a really cool resource because it would allow people to come in and they could watch the games they love, and then they could check out games that they don't know anything about. And then we could build relationships with all the manufacturers, kind of like we have with Infinity, with Corvus Belli, how they supply us with the miniatures essentially. We haven't paid for any of the miniatures. And that's allowed us to cover that game. And so I would love to see that with other gaming companies as well, once we're ready to expand, because let's face it, miniatures, when they produce them, like giving us free miniatures is cheap for our company. That's inexpensive compared to the advertising, the advertising that they're getting in return for all the battle reports. Not that we're making them millions of dollars, but it doesn't cost them millions of dollars to send us those miniatures. So it's a good return. So I hope that we just continue to grow. Obviously not necessarily at the same rapid growth rate that we've been doing, but although I'd love that. I just want to see us continue to grow and always able to tack on new games and new games. Obviously maybe phase out games that become so unpopular and not played, that nobody's really watching the videos anymore, and kind of just have that cycle where we always have those cornerstone games like Games Workshop and Privateer Press and whatever other ones come up to kind of match their levels, which eventually I believe will happen. So that kind of answers the question of what game we'd cover next and if we'll be able to. So the answer is I really don't know. We have to be able to grow the vault and support more employees while still be able to grow the career of the employees that are here and all of that. So it's an exciting future, and I have no idea what it's going to look like. I couldn't have guessed that our business would look like this. Just a year ago, I wouldn't have known that it would look like this, let alone 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Heck, 10 years ago it didn't even exist. So lots has happened. Next question from Trinity Blazer. Also, what do you think of a Necron dynasty that are mercenaries and fight for the highest bidder? You know what? With the Necron fluff, you totally could do that. They're basically just humans in their range of variety. You always want to kind of pull it back and make them still mechanical in the way they think and the way they act. But yeah, no, I could totally see Necrons that would do that. You could just have that in their fluff that they were mercenaries back in the Necron days, and that now they just continue doing that. Heck, they could even have some malfunction in their programming that makes them want to be mercenaries or something. You could. That's the wonderful thing about most of the 40K fluff, is that there is a reason for each species to kind of do whatever you want. The only one that's kind of locked in its way of thinking is the Tyranids. It's hard for them really to go outside of their devour mentality. They're not going to be working with anybody or things like that. You can still work them into fluff and have them do different things, but for the most part they kind of have one objective and one objective only and don't care about anything else. All right. DKDBSD, not a question, just a statement. Woo, more fantasy. I look forward for seeing these battle reports. Well, if all goes well, we're going to start them on Wednesday, and then they'll be going out weekly on Wednesdays. And it'll be 2 per week, 1 for free, 1 in the vault. So it looks like we'll be able to keep up that starting next week. Equos, hey Matt, greeting from Poland. About sexuality and wargaming, you need to know that Infinity is strongly influenced by manga anime, so sexuality is perfectly natural for this game. Yeah, no, I know that it's anime and stuff, but just because it's inspired by a certain thing doesn't mean it needs to also use that part of it too. Also, it is weird that you're okay with bloodletting, killing en masse, and other demonic, occult, sadistic things, and a few models showing sexy females makes you want to quit Infinity. Just use other models, mate. Game itself is awesome and need to be supported. Nonetheless, keep up the good work, and happy wargaming. And I realize that people are going to say stuff like that, but let's face it, when you're putting your miniatures on the table and you're rolling dice, you're not exactly depicting the blood and gore of warfare, so that's just the way it is. But when you stick a miniature down there that is obviously has sexuality to it, that it is depicting that right there. It's right in front of you, and it's just not something I want. So I can respect your opinions on it. You can go ahead and play with those things, and that's fine, but it's just not something I want to see. And that seems to be, I see that comment a lot. You're okay with violence, but not this. And it's like, it's not the same, and I think we know that. Zaid, dear Matt, Dave, and the other good people at miniwargaming.com. I'm worried about a new Kickstarter, Girls on Games, a look at the fair side of the industry. I've not heard of that. As soon as this popped up in my Facebook feed for upcoming Facebook projects, I got scared because it might turn out to be a Sarkassian-esque hit piece. I have no idea what that is. Hopefully I'm getting ahead of myself, but the fact is video games are a massive, profitable industry that has come into its own to stand with movies and television. Despite some attempts by Games Workshop to expand the market, like streamlining demonettes and toning down codices, the reality is the hobby has shrunk and this could hurt it more. What are your thoughts? I have no idea why. I don't know anything about the Kickstarter thing, so I have no idea why it would have any relevance to anything about miniature wargaming. So I'm not sure what you're talking about. Like, are you saying that it's going to draw girls more into video games and so they won't play miniature war games? Is that what you're saying? Because if that's the case, like, video games draw everybody in more than miniature war games. Like, it's just a bigger market. And yes, it does mean that some people might actually spend money on miniature war games but instead play video games, but there's always competing markets when it comes to entertainment. And so I doubt that one Kickstarter is going to have any impact on the overall market. Not typically. My Shifter. Hi Matt, and greetings from Malaysia. Really enjoyed the narrative campaigns, and the one in particular where the showdown duel between Asterath and Captain Sandini. Did I spell his name right? You did, actually. The challenge could have been straightforward with just them in base contact determined by the dice rolls, but you and Dave role-played the characters too, and it was pure thrill and awesome. It was pretty goofy. It was fun. Realize Dave is planning to start a Space Wolves army. Think there will be a narrative campaign involving the Space Wolves soon? Well, I don't know. It depends on what you define as soon, because he's still collecting it, and it can take a while because they have to get painted and all that. He's got his first Space Wolf models in just the other day, a bunch of Terminators with blood claws. And we just ordered a bunch more Space Wolf stuff. So we typically want to build up a good size force, like a few thousand points, at least 4,000 or 5,000 points before we do a narrative campaign. So I wouldn't expect a campaign this year, but that's not saying much because this year is rapidly coming to a close. So, but I don't know. I can tell you right now, he doesn't, as far as I know, he doesn't have any very specific plans of when he's going to do a Space Wolves campaign, but I'm sure it'll be as soon as he can, once he plays a bunch of battle reports with them and gets to know them. Al Jadas, I don't play fantasy, but I'm very happy to hear you're going to make fantasy Batreps, especially with that nice medieval music by Kevin MacLeod playing in the back. Yes, indeed. All right. I'm going to skip over a lot of the comments replying to the talking about the sexuality, even the ones that agree with me, just because we covered it. I kind of want to move on from the subject and cover other stuff. So if I skip your comment, or actually now I'm just doing random comments, so you don't know if I skip your comment. But if I don't read your comment, don't think it's because I'm just avoiding the issue. It's just because we talked about it. You've heard my opinion. And I don't really want the show just to become about that and nothing else. So I'm just going to go through it. Balvai. Hi, Matt. Love everything you guys do. I'll jump right into it. You talked about an alternate fluff in which Emperor Reborn, etc. Being a Space Wolves 13 company fan since the Eye of Terror campaign, I recall a certain section of fluff. The bear shall take up the mantle of gatekeeper, and the lost kin return to the realms of man. Brother shall slay brother as in the dawn of time, but the werekin stand aloof. Their task set in stone before them. The son of the traitor shall lay waste. First the gate, then the palace. The children of Rust shall oppose him or perish. Their names reviled for all time. Now is the time, mighty wolf. Your hunt is nearing its end. Your quarry is set before you. Your saga shall be sung for all time. I always envisioned the final battle where the Space Wolves, including the 13th Company, defend the last lines of terror against the forces of chaos. This would be something epic that I don't think GW would ever cover due to its finalizing much of the 40k universe. Yeah, I don't expect Games Workshop to ever super advance the storyline for 40k, because it does kind of backfire into the whole, you know, if you advance it too far and then things just becomes a historical war game where you're just reenacting things that happened. And that's the strength I find in 40k, is that the universe is kind of, the stage is set and you kind of go in and do what you want with it. It would be nice if they kind of advanced it here and there, and maybe they will, like with, as far as I understand, with the End Times with Nagash. I haven't read it, but from what I hear, it does advance the storyline because it's Nagash coming back, so that's kind of cool. I definitely want them to create an Emperor model and give it rules, but they can have the excuse of doing it for the Horus Heresy. They don't have to make it so that he's reborn. But who knows? Who knows what they'll do? They could advance it in such a way that, you know, they kind of just advance every storyline a little bit, like the Necrons expand, the Tau expand their empire, the Tyranids, you know, there's more High Fleets coming in, more Chaos Crusades, even bringing the Emperor back, which I don't think they'd ever do. It just seems too, it just doesn't seem like something that would, if I were them, I don't think I would do it, just because it's more fun to talk about it and talk about the what ifs of what's going on than it might be to actually realize it. It's kind of like, remember like with the X-Files, they always came so close to showing you the aliens, but they really never did. But then once they did, it kind of loses a bit. And then a lot of movies do that too, where they spend a lot of it kind of in this mystery, and they allude to things. And then once they show it, there's that moment of like shock where it's like, oh, they showed it, and then it kind of loses a bit of its mystery because now it's there. I remember X-Files the movie did that, where they showed the aliens at the end and the spaceship going off. And I remember seeing the spaceship and being like, well, I'm glad they showed it because I'd be disappointed if they didn't. But at the same time, seeing it kind of removed that mystery from the movie, so it's ironic. I wanted to see it, but when I did, there was a bit of disappointment there. So I think the same thing goes for the Emperor, that everybody wants to see him. They want to see him reborn and kind of continue that. They want to see the 40k universe continue, but I have a funny feeling that if they tried to do that, it wouldn't have the desired effect. So, but who knows? Who knows what they'll plan on doing with it? It's hard. Hemza Sayang. Hi Matt, newly joined member here. Just wanted to say well done on sticking to it by your morals and principles regardless of other people's views or financial pressures. We are the sum total of our beliefs and principles, and it is rare to find people who won't sell out. My hat is off to you and Dave. On another note, have you tried a NID force that is completely dropped in and hidden deployment? I'm thinking of putting one together and wanted to know your thoughts before I spend thousands. I think you'd have to have an agreement with your opponent that you don't auto-lose turn 1, because I think the rule is still there as far as I know, that if at the end of your turn there's no forces on the table that you lose. I think that's still there. What's that?
Reserves count.
They do count now in 7th edition? Okay, good. Yeah, so have I tried it? I did back in the days where we had my set Explorers, because then it was much easier, because you could load all your troop choices up. Because you could bring Ripper Swarms and give them Deep Strike. So, and of course you can just put stuff in reserve. It doesn't have to have Deep Strike. It just means turn 1 you're not doing anything. As long as you're not playing a Maelstrom mission where they can just kind of grab a bunch of objectives, and it would be kind of fun to do that. Okay. Here we go. Blaze Heroic. Hi Matt, love all the Vault content and the narrative campaigns. Narratives were the reason I joined the Vault. Keep them coming. I have 2 questions for you. 1, would you ever consider doing a special edition Batrep with all the mini Wargaming employees, such as you and Dave versus Ash and Steve? Even if it was just a one-shot, it would be amazing. Would I consider it? Yes. Am I planning on doing it? No. It might be something we do one day, but I don't. There's something about 2v2 games or 3v3 games that, unless they're Apocalypse, maybe we'll do a big Apocalypse game. Maybe we'll have like a Christmas special. Or maybe on our 10th anniversary, so in 3 years from now, we'll do like some humongous game with just mini Wargaming employees. That would be fun. I know a lot of people say they want it, and I'm sure it would be popular. It's just obviously goes back to the whole production schedule thing. But if it is just a one-off time, then, or a one-off thing, then maybe why not? One day, you might see that. And Jet Void Dweller, it's great to know that right as I'm getting into fantasy, my favorite Batrep guys are getting back into it. Glad to hear that. Tempest 1989. Hey Matt, in regards to move through cover on models that normally move 12 inches, my club has a house rule that changes the wording of the rule. Rather than pick the highest, change it to discard the lowest. It doesn't change how the rule works, but makes more sense as written. Yeah, because I guess if you're rolling 3 dice, you just take the 2 and you add it together, and that works. Yeah, that could work too, assuming they have move through cover. Because I don't think super heavy walkers by default have move through cover, but maybe they do. I know the Imperial Knight Titan has moved through cover, but is that because it is a super heavy walker, or is that because it's a Knight Titan? Because what they do when you look at the Imperial Knight Titan, it actually lists all the super heavy rules. Like it's like has all these rules, but those were already implied when it said super heavy walker, which kind of makes it confusing for knowing which is actually the Imperial Knight and which is a super heavy. So let's take a look. So super heavy walker, the campfire, Overwatch, special rules. Yeah, all super heavy walkers have the following special rules: move through cover, fear, hammer of wrath, invincible, move through cover, relentless smash, and strike down. And strike down's only. I found strike down is always funny on a super heavy walker with a destroyer weapon. It's like, well, most likely the strike down is not going to come into effect. Yeah, so they all have move through cover, so I guess you could make that your house rule. I kind of like that actually, rather than doubling the highest, because then it almost always gets you a 12-inch move. You just add the 2 highest together. That's an interesting house rule. Really, if we go as rules as written, then we would have to go with those people that say, even those that move 12 inches, when they're going through difficult terrain, they'd roll 3 dice, take the highest, and that's how far they move. And we could argue that all day long, because I say, well, why would all of a sudden they go as slow as everybody else? And people could say, well, they're big, so they get slowed even more by difficult terrain. But then I'm like, well, then why do you give them move through cover? And because they're big, they can kind of crash through difficult terrain without any difficulty. And so rules is written, yeah, you could win that easily by saying, well, they move that far. But the thing is, super heavy walkers are the only thing that gets slowed by difficult terrain that also move 12 inches. Everything else that moves 12 inches ignores difficult terrain, such as beasts, or treats it just like dangerous terrain, such as vehicles or bikes or jump infantry, anything like that. So yeah, so our house rule is just that. You roll 3 dice, take the highest, double it, and you go with that. But I do like the sounds of that other one, although it will pretty much always force it to be a smaller movement. And so that doesn't quite mathematically work out to be equivalent to the 6-inch movers rolling 2 dice and taking the highest. So, but either work. I could see that. I could see that being a good house rule too. My question, so Tempest 1989 with another question. I'm really mad at you. Every time I try to paint my Tyranids, I get my models ready, get my paints out, brush and water jar set up, put a beat map Batrep on YouTube, and get distracted by it for so long that I run out of time or get too tired to focus. When I don't get distracted by the Batreps, I get bored of it really quickly, and I can't afford to pay a commission to paint it for me. Any ideas on how I can focus long enough to get the job done? Well, I don't think battle reports are the best video to try to paint to, because you need to see what's going on to get the whole thing. Like just the audio doesn't really, because we're not trying to make just an audio podcast or something. We don't attempt at all to try to make it work without the visuals. It's all about the two together. And so the Sin Talk and other vlogs like Shrine of Chaos, now that we don't have very many shows like that anymore, and it would be nice if we could have some more of those, but we'll work those in eventually. They're better for it because you don't need to see any of this to really, like, there's very few times where a look on my face or an expression or a hand motion actually conveys something more than the words that I'm conveying. So you could totally just delete the video from this and just listen to the MP3 version and get pretty much 99.9% of what I am saying. And so those ones seem to be a better one to do to a podcast or to painting, because it's an hour long. You just turn it on and listen to it. So podcasts are definitely better for that, or anything that's just a vlog style thing is better to paint to, I find. Or something that you've seen before, like a movie that you've seen before. I find that would work. But if it's something you haven't seen before, not a good idea to try to get anything done while you're doing it. Mirden, hello Matt. First off, thank you for answering my question that popped from time to time on the show. Especially the one War Machine fantasy oriented. Yeah, the long one. Must have been tiring. This time, I just want to say good job to all of you. I really like the narrative campaigns. Thank you. Though strangely, the Ixia one didn't appeal to me as much. By far, the Fade Fayum was the one most awesome till now. But the World Engine might trump that. We'll see. Yeah, I don't even know, because it always depends on what happens in the battle reports. On a side note, you started with Lord of the Rings tabletop game, and after some time ended with 40k. It was the same with me. I started an Easternling Haradrim army, and now the Lord of the Ring armies have been mostly sold off, keeping just few favorite miniatures. In exchange, I raised a nice 40k force. I wonder how many people experience the same thing, as there seems to be some hidden pattern. Maybe the 40k rule set is the most evolved, and the game itself is better supported than the other two. The second one is definitely the case. Is the rule set the most evolved? Well, it's gone through a lot of additions, a lot of changes. It's an enjoyable game. Games Workshop claims to be a model company first and a games company second, which I agree with, but at the same time, I enjoy their games. But that could be because I enjoy their models, so, and kind of just the way the game plays with terrain and models on the board. So maybe that's the case. So I don't know. It's really hard, and it's really hard for anybody to really know, even Games Workshop, to 100% know why things work exactly the way they do. All they can do is say, this has worked in the past, and when we focus on this, meaning the quality of our miniatures, then we make more money. And so let's keep doing that. There might be some other stuff that they could be doing that would make them way more money, but they can't know without experimenting a whole lot. And sometimes for an established company that can be dangerous, because that same experimenting could lose them a ton of money. So it's a big gamble. So it's good for big companies like Games Workshop to kind of focus in and really narrow down what it is that they're going to decide to be good at. And even though they have the means to be good at other things, it's better for them just to stick to their core principles. And in the case of Games Workshop, it is models first, games second. Even though I still like their games and their supplements and all of that kind of stuff, their models are fantastic, and that's really what it comes down to. Whereas you get other companies that sometimes go with games first, models second, and that appeals to a certain range of players as well. I think of War Machine in specific, where it's a games first, model second kind of feel. I don't know if that's what they actually do internally, but they do a really good job making their game and supporting their game and tournaments and organized play and journeyman leagues and all that kind of stuff. But their models aren't anywhere near as good as Games Workshop. And of course, I realize it's subjective, but I've seen a lot of War Machine models and I've seen a lot of Games Workshop models, and well, I like the War Machine models. They're good. Obviously, some people won't like the aesthetics of 40k or War Machine or whatever, but I do think the War Machine and Hordes models are good. But just not the same level as the Games Workshop stuff. So what is it that does it? Well, we don't know exactly. All we know is that it's worked, and so that's what they've decided to keep doing. So why is it that we gravitate? Well, going from Lord of the Rings to 40K, that's easy. I can almost guarantee why that's the case. It's because Lord of the Rings isn't supported hardly at all, and not a lot of people play it. And it was based on a franchise that was popular at a time and then became less popular because the movies are done. I know there's The Hobbit out right now, but it's just not the same. And so anytime you base on that kind of thing, where it's based on the popularity of movies especially, because movies are the least investment for somebody. Like if somebody goes and watches a movie and they really like it, that's the least investment for them to get into that franchise. Whereas like if somebody reads a book, it's much more of an investment. Or if somebody buys miniatures, obviously it's a very big investment. So there's different levels of how much people will care. Like even Star Trek, you get a lot of people liking Star Trek, but not all those people go to the Star Trek conventions and dress up as the Star Trek characters and learn the Klingon language. Like you just don't get that kind of investment in the majority of people that enjoy Star Trek. But when it comes to Warhammer, you do, because it just requires so much more. It requires so much of everything. Whereas if you were to have a lot of 40K movies and computer games, which I think they should do, and they kind of are, but I think they should do even more. Those people who get into the movies and the computer games, some of them will trickle over to the miniature war games, but it's more likely that you get the people from miniature war games who will go and watch the movies and video games than vice versa, just because of the level of investment into the franchise itself. So who knows? Who knows? Fabian. Hey, Fabian. Thank you, Mini Wargaming. It inspired my new channel, Warp Wide Wargaming. You and Dave are my mentors. Awesome. Miso Miso. Oh, you're continuing a comment that you did from before, but the comments get randomized. So make sure you don't just post 2 comments in a row where the one requires me to know what the first comment is in order to get any context, because they get randomized. And so they get thrown out of order. Preebs, my question, any chance we could see all the points of Mini Wargaming orcs? Will you be getting more orc models? We don't actually have many orcs. The orcs that you've seen in the past, like in our earlier campaigns, we had borrowed orcs, and then there was Andy who came in with his orcs. I think we only have 2,000 or 3,000 points of orcs maximum. And so we definitely, and a lot of them are kind of half painted. So I don't really consider us to have an orc army that would be suitable for battle reports and narrative campaigns. We kind of have used it, but if we ever wanted to do another orc campaign, I think we would build up more of an army first, or at least get a lot of the models that are here painted, like finished painting, so that we can have them, because they're kind of not complete. So we got a lot of them, but a lot of models, but points-wise, it's not a lot. Miso Miso, I guess I understand not doing voiceover regarding your battle reports, but it would be really good to get some tactical discussion back in the videos, especially the War Machine ones, as it is a very strategic game. Could you try maybe talking about the tactics a bit more during the games? Even if it risks giving away strategy, I feel a lot has been lost. I remember you moaning about trolls and trying everything to beat them. It was brilliant. Vault member for life. Yeah, there's definitely going to be that balance there, because the more we add tactics into the battle reports, the longer the battle report gets. I don't want a long battle report. Then there's like the post-game discussions and all that, but often we're just film, game after game after game. Like the players come in and we just try to get into games, and there's not a lot of time in between that we really get into the tactics, because we try to get more games done in a day. And that's something that we have to do in order to keep this economically feasible. So we've got to find some sort of balance, some sort of way to bring more of that back in. And the boys rule. Hi Matt, just a few questions. 1, there has been quite a bit of controversy over the Sisters of Battle form-fitting power armor. Then you say it was designed to suit the male pervs in the 40K hobby. Others argue that it was just slimmer to represent the lower Sisters' strength and toughness of the Sisters compared to that Space Marines. What are your thoughts on the matter, and what do you think of the Sisters team in general? Well, I think you know my thoughts on the matter overall of trying to add that stuff in. The Sisters, those miniatures, I don't know, they've never really bothered me. Maybe because they're old and so they just kind of look cartoonish, but whatever. Although there's some of the models I'm not a big fan of, but like I said, I'm not going to get too much more into that. Number 2, if someone came in to play you with a super max cheese list, would you play them? I've done it many times before. If you did, and they were a power gamer and a jerk and whined about stuff like Jink, would you post it on Mini Wargaming? Well, I have control of the camera. I usually get a good feel for what the players like pretty early in the game, and that kind of determines how much I try to get them on camera. So I've played against people who've cheesed, and even some who have been kind of poor sports. Thankfully, that has been a very small minority of the many people that have come in here. You see, I think what happens is because people watch our videos, and the majority of people are not local, not that local people, I have any problem with them, but that they have to kind of invest more to get here. I tend to find that they're not just trying to invest to get here just to beat the snot out of me, although some people do, and I don't blame them, I understand. And so it's because of that, they tend to want to just come in because they're like, hey, this would be so cool to be there because I watch their videos and I'm going to be in the area on a vacation anyway, so let's bring our models and I'll spend a day there or spend a morning and afternoon there. And so they tend to be in there more for fun. They still try to win. I really find somebody who's like, I don't care about winning. They usually always want to win. They usually want to try out some cool list that they have, but very rarely is it the super max cheesy jerk of a guy who complains about every time and it nitpicks everything you try to do and is like, oh, you got to measure that better. Very rarely get somebody like that. So, and that's good. That's really good. That's who I want. I don't want to play against power gamers. It's just that's not what I'd like to do. I don't want to go to tournaments. I just want to play for fun. I want to try fun things, and I want you to try fun things with your list, and we just have fun. That's all I want. So yeah, you still try to win, definitely. You definitely try to win, but still have fun. Elite Master, hey Matt, first off, sorry for any grammar mess ups. Okay, so why do you keep taking dangerous terrain tests for your monstrous creature? You have move through cover special rule, and under the rule you pass them no matter what, so why do you keep doing that? I think I've only done it like once or twice by accident, so I don't do them that often. It's not very often that a monstrous creature has to make dangerous terrain tests. I think it's just when I'm doing my flying monstrous creature and I go into cover, that's when I would roll it, and forgetting that. I do it because I forget, that's all. Ben Ergeman. Hey Matt, love your works, but want to know a little more about you. Where'd you go to school? Well, I went to school, actually there's a school right here that's now closed called Empire Street School, which is actually, it's kind of funny because the street right there is Empire Street, and the street over there I think is Duncan, but the school on that street is called Empire Street School. So I don't know why they didn't call it Duncan Street School, because I don't know, I don't think they ever moved. I think that was always where the school was. Anyways, I went there for kindergarten, then we moved and I went to Fitch Street School for grades 1 through 3, and then we moved again and I went to Pelham Center, a little school out in the middle of Pelham, a small town, and I went for that until high school, and we didn't move again, but then I went to high school at E.L. Crosley in Fonthill, Ontario. After that, I graduated, and once I came back from being a missionary for a couple of years for my church, I went to university at Brock University for computer science, where I got my Bachelor of Science in computer science. And that is my scholarly career. Favorite activity besides wargaming? Well, activity, if you're talking about hobby or entertainment-wise, and not necessarily just like anything, I like cooking. I like computer games. I like playing with my kids. That's fun too. I think that sums up my list of things that I really enjoy doing. There's a lot of other stuff. I like watching TV and movies and all that kind of stuff. So, and how about favorite food? Ooh, I am a food lover. I love all sorts of food. Favorite food? Chicken wings are way up there. But there's a lot of different kinds of food that I like. All sorts. But chicken wings are probably, they'll be on the top list. So all this stuff that's on the top list I might not think about all the time. It's just more when I get to have it, it's really good. But yeah, chicken wings, definitely up there. All right. Peter Gooding. Hi, Matt. I managed to get a hold of a gaming mat, and I'm assuming you mean the ones from Frontline Gaming, and have to agree with you that they are great. Well recommended. Anyway, on to my question. I guess that you must have quite a few computers in your company. So I was wondering, do you guys maintain them both hardware and software, or do you have a third-party company do this for you? Still, we do it still in-house because we're not a big enough company yet to need to spend the money. Basically what you have to do is you have to determine at some point when it's going to save you money to outsource. And so far, we haven't really experienced too many technical glitches by taking care of everything in-house. So there's been times where I haven't wanted to take care of it myself. If there's technical problems with the website or with our network or with hard drives or with software when we're trying to edit our videos. I don't enjoy taking care of any of that, but it doesn't make sense yet for us to outsource that just for the occasional time that we do have a problem. Theosis. For all the talk of cheese among the community, you should host a 40k league with the prize being a giant block of cheese. I like Münster and Cooper Sharp, personally. Vault member for life. That'd be kind of funny. Okay. Whew. That one's about stuff from last week. Wargamer Sky. Hey, Hive Mind. Hello. So now that Mr. Kirby has stepped down and Matt Ward has left Games Workshop, what are your personal and professional thoughts on the company and what could happen now? Well, Matt Ward leaving, that has way less impact than Mr. Kirby stepping down and having somebody else become the CEO, because Matt Ward is just one of the writers. Yeah, he was a prominent one, but they're always going to have turnover in their writers and in their artists and in their staff. Where you see the real changes in the company is when the upper management makes changes. So when he steps down and somebody else comes in, I have no idea. What do I think can happen? Anything can happen. They could sell to another company, and that could be a wonderful or horrible thing. Like a new CEO could step in and revolutionize things in ways that everybody will complain about, and that could happen. Or another CEO could step in and do just exactly what's been done because, hey, it's working to some degree, maybe making small improvements here or there, or maybe making it a little worse here and there. I really have no idea. I can't even predict the future of my small little company that has way less variables to it, let alone a big multi-million-dollar company like Games Workshop that has way more variables involved in it. I'm also curious in your opinions and impressions of Matt Ward because he was so incredibly hated by some wargamers but loved by others. I have never come across examples or comparisons of how his work hurt the game or the community, and it seems like I got into the hobby after his damage was done. Thoughts? Oh, he wrote a couple codexes that people didn't agree with. And you know what? It's probably just a loud minority who hate him. Most people probably don't even really know who he is. On the internet, we can get the impression that a market feels a certain way when it's just a loud minority because the internet allows people to be much louder than they normally are. Okay. All right. Probably going to finish soon. I got one more page here that I printed off. Laws 1, 2, 3. Sorry, my nose is really itchy all of a sudden. Hi, Matt. Hope everything is well. Have to say, love all the content you lads pump out day in, day out. Also really like new additions to your team. I like Ash's explosive personality of awesomeness. And Steve, well, come on. It's Steve. Anyways, questions. I have a few, so apologize for the length of this, but I have never commented before. First, are you and Holly going to do any more game videos? We have no plans to. We got bored of Minecraft. We don't want to play it anymore. It was always supposed to be casual, so I do not feel the slightest bit bad about that. Thanks to you, I got hooked for months after watching those videos from Minecraft, and I know you said you're bored of Minecraft. Oh, so you already knew that. Just wondered if you may expect something else at some point, as I find your chemistry together hilarious when gaming. Probably not. Just Minecraft was kind of one of those anomalies where it's a game that she could get into that I liked. But other than that, like I guess we both play Clash of Clans. That's kind of fun. But it's hardly something that you're going to sit down and make a video because it's like, all right, we're going to start training guys. Okay. Okay, we're going to put this down for 20 minutes and come back. It's just not, you know, there's videos you can do, obviously. There's tons of people who make Clash of Clans videos out there, but I don't know if we ever care to. It's just something we do casually. Secondly, I am new really to collecting. Honestly, I am a wannabe writer, so I got majorly into the fluff of the army, such as Horus Heresy and Space Wolf series. My problem is I like too many of the armies, Space Wolves, Chaos, Demons, Dark Eldar, Tyranids. I know I can't start on all, but I wondered if you or anyone in the mini wargaming community could advise what to go with. I know I want Space Wolves for a definite, but not sure on the opposing army. You know what? The answer to this question, there is no answer to this question except play what you want to play. You have to look at the armies, and whatever makes you the most excited, that's the army you should collect. Whether it's the fluff that makes you most excited, or whether it's the actual models that make you most excited, or whether it's the way they play that makes you most excited, it doesn't matter. whatever it, because it's a hobby. In order for you to really get into it and stay into it, it has to be something that you really enjoy doing. And so you have to choose something based on that, nothing else. Like opinions can help sway you to what you'd be excited about, but you've already read the fluff. You've already looked at models, so just which one jumps at you the most that you're like, yeah, I really want that one. And if there's multiples, great, just roll a die, pick one, and start with that one. Another thing that I find works, if there's like 2 movies that you're trying to pick between and you don't know which one, you put both behind your back and you shuffle them and you say, I'm going to do this one. And you immediately you listen to the feelings that you have. Are you slightly disappointed that you got that one? Or are you okay with it? If you're okay with it, go with it. If you're slightly disappointed, then throw it away and do the other one, because obviously that's what you wanted and it was just so close that you couldn't tell. So you roll a die, like make a list of the ones that you really like and you can't decide between. Roll a die, choose that one, and if you feel slightly disappointed, then take it off the list and do it again. And keep doing that until you get one that you're not disappointed with. So there you go. Finally, I know it is an expensive hobby, so not much I can do with the model prices unless I bought off eBay. Yet I was wondering, is there a cheaper version of the paints rather than Citadel? Oh, there's tons of paint manufacturers out there. There's Vallejo, there's Old Privateer makes their own paints. There's, you know, Chris,
yes.
If you weren't making videos and you were just painting, and so there was no pressure other than just painting with what you wanted to paint with, what paint series would you use?
Most likely GW.
Most likely Games Workshop.
Yeah.
Okay, so there you go. Because you also, it's not just it's not the price of the paint that's most important. It's actually the quality of it. Otherwise, you'll get frustrated with the painting. And that's Chris does tons of painting, and with and he doesn't have any affiliations with Games Workshop. Not like Ash, who's the Games Workshop fanboy of the office.
Shill.
What's that?
I'm a shill.
Yeah, he's a Games Workshop fanboy. So of course he'll say Games Workshop paints. But I don't trust. I don't trust his. What, you use the War Machine ones?
No, I use GW.
I know. Yeah.
But I think it'd be hard to find people who've been painting miniatures for a long time who would say something different, because after 24 years of painting GW paints, you know exactly what they do.
Yeah.
That's the only reason. It's because.
Yeah, because you're familiar with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you weren't familiar with them, would they still be your pick? Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Now, if you're looking for cheaper, there's lots of cheap alternatives out there, but you'll probably be disappointed with their quality. And take it from me, I've painted lots in the past, not now, but I've painted with bad paint, and it's just frustrating. So just go with the good stuff. So, wow, I rambled, LOL, sorry about the length, but once again, thanks for all the awesome sauce videos, to you and Dave in particular. Thank you. P.S. After watching the dress bet video, I think Steve should step up his next bet. If Dave loses, he should dress up as a Tau for the day. That'd be much more embarrassing. All right, can we do one more? Here we go. Mini Wargaming 2. That's a great username. Mini Wargaming 2. I wonder why you didn't just choose Mini Wargaming. Maybe because it's already taken. Hi Matt. First, I would like to say I love the work you've done. Thank you. I've been watching for 5 to 6 years now and have loved every minute of it. I remember you guys used to sell Magic the Gathering, and I was wondering about your opinion of it and Wizards of the Coast in general. I think Magic the Gathering is a fun game. They make lots of money with it, and they have a really good system for it. And I enjoyed playing it when I did, but don't really play it now, so I can't have much of an opinion on it recently. I know if you go to like Magic tournaments, you're going to get the kind of the powerless and stuff, but if you're just playing casually, kind of like how I like to play 40K, you could probably still have more fun with it that way. Thank you for all of your questions and comments. Of course, if you want your comment answered in next week's show, I can't guarantee it, of course, but you can try by leaving a comment in the comment section below, unless you're watching this on YouTube, in which case click the link in the video description and leave a comment there. Thank you for watching. This is Matthew from Mini Wargaming. Happy Wargaming.